The emergency room at St. Catherine's Hospital smelled like antiseptic and desperation, a combination that Mara Sullivan had long since stopped noticing. She'd worked the night shift for 4 years now, ever since the divorce, ever since she'd needed the shift differential to pay for Emma's mounting medical bills. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh white glow that made everyone look half dead, even when they weren't. It was 2 in the morning on a Saturday, which meant the usual parade of drunk college kids, domestic violence victims trying to lie about their injuries, and overdoses that came in waves like a terrible tide. Mara was updating a chart when the doors burst open, and 3 men carried in a fourth. She looked up, her nurse's assessment already cataloging details before her conscious mind caught up. The injured man was in his mid-30s, well-dressed despite the blood soaking through his shirt, conscious but pale. The 3 men carrying him moved with military precision, their eyes scanning the room with the kind of alertness that suggested training and danger. One of them locked eyes with Mara, and she felt a chill run down her spine. "He needs help," the man said, and it wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the absolute certainty of someone used to being obeyed. Mara's training kicked in before her better judgment could intervene. "Gurney, now!" she called to the orderly, already moving toward them, her hands reaching for gloves from her pocket. "What happened?" "He fell," one of the men said, and it was such an obvious lie that Mara almost laughed. "You didn't get a wound like that, bleeding through that expensive shirt in that particular pattern, from falling. That was a gunshot wound, and not her first one tonight, though the others had come via ambulance with police escorts and incident reports." "On what, a bullet?" Mara asked, helping guide the injured man onto the gurney the orderly had rushed over. Up close, she could see he was handsome in a sharp, dangerous way, with dark eyes that held hers even through obvious pain. "Something like that," the injured man said, and his voice was surprisingly steady. "Can you help me?" "That's my job," Mara said, already assessing. Entry wound, no exit that she could see, which meant the bullet was still in there. "But I need to call this in. Gunshot wounds are mandatory reporting." The 3 men shifted, and suddenly the air in the room felt different, charged with threat. The one who'd spoken first moved closer. "That would be unfortunate, for everyone." Mara looked at him, then at the injured man, then at the nearly empty ER. It was just her, one orderly, and Dr. Reeves, who was currently dealing with a cardiac emergency in Trauma 2. She thought of Emma, asleep at home with Mrs. Chen from next door watching her. Emma who needed surgery in 3 weeks that insurance had denied. Emma who was her whole world and the reason Mara did everything she did. "I could lose my license," Mara said quietly. "My job. Everything." "You won't," the injured man said, and despite his obvious pain, his voice carried absolute conviction. "I promise you. Just help me, and I'll make sure you're protected." Mara made a decision she knew she'd probably regret. "Treatment room 3. It's empty. Get him in there. You 3 wait out here." "We stay with him," one of the men said. "Then he can bleed out in your car," Mara snapped, surprised by her own boldness. "Because I can't work with you hovering over me, and I sure as hell can't do this with witnesses. You want me to help him off the books, then you play by my rules." The injured man looked at his companions and nodded slightly. "Do what she says. Wait outside. Marcus, watch the door." They didn't like it, but they obeyed, which told Mara something significant about the man on her gurney. He was in charge, even bleeding and in pain. That made him either very important or very dangerous, probably both. She wheeled him into treatment room 3 and closed the door. The click of the lock seemed too loud in the small space. "I'm going to need to cut your shirt off," she said, already reaching for scissors. "It's custom," the man said, then smiled slightly. "But I suppose I have others." Mara cut through the expensive fabric, revealing a muscled torso and the wound she'd suspected. Entry point just below the left shoulder, still bleeding, but not arterial. If she had to deal with an unreported gunshot wound, at least it was one she could handle without surgery. "You're lucky," she said, cleaning the area, feeling him tense under her hands. "Missed anything vital? But the bullet's still in there. I can get it out, clean the wound, but you need antibiotics, proper care. Probably should be admitted for observation." "Can't do that," the man said. "Just get the bullet out, patch me up. I'll handle the rest." Mara looked at him, really looked at him. "Who are you?" "Someone who appreciates discretion," he said, "and rewards it. What's your name?" "Mara." She regretted it immediately, the same way she'd regretted everything about this situation from the moment she'd made the choice to help. Never give them your name. Never give them anything they can use. "Mara," he repeated, like he was tasting it. "I'm Alessandro. My friends call me Alex." "We're not friends," Mara said, preparing the local anesthetic. She'd done this before, removed bullets, stitched wounds that should have gone to trauma surgeons. "You worked enough night shifts in this neighborhood. You learned to handle things that weren't strictly in your job description. This is going to hurt." "I've had worse," Alessandro said, and Mara believed him. He had scars, she could see them now, a roadmap of violence across his skin. This wasn't his first gunshot wound, wouldn't be his last. She worked in focused silence, numbing the area, using forceps to probe for the bullet. Alessandro tensed, but didn't cry out, didn't flinch beyond what was involuntary. He had remarkable control, the kind that suggested either extensive experience with pain or extensive training in ignoring it. "You're good at this," he said after a while, his voice strained but conversational. "How long have you been a nurse?" 8 years. Can you hold still?" "Sorry." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "You have kids?" Mara's hands stilled for just a second before she forced herself to continue working. "Why?" "There's a photo on your badge. Little girl, maybe 7 or 8. Pretty. Looks like you." Mara glanced down at her ID badge, where Emma's picture smiled out from the plastic holder she'd clipped next to it. Stupid. So stupid to have that there, to give this dangerous man any information about her daughter. "She's 9, and she's none of your business." "Fair enough," Alessandro said. Then, as Mara finally grasped the bullet with her forceps and began extracting it, he added through gritted teeth, "But if you ever need anything, for her or for you, you call me. I pay my debts." The bullet came free, deformed and dark with blood. Mara dropped it into a metal tray, where it landed with a small clink. "I don't want anything from you except for you to leave and never come back." "We both know that's not entirely true," Alessandro said, and there was something knowing in his voice that made Mara uncomfortable. "You need money. The way you looked at my watch, my suit, the way you agreed to this, even though it could cost you everything. You're desperate. What for?" "That's none of your business," Mara said, cleaning the wound with more force than necessary. "Medical bills," Alessandro guessed. "Your daughter. Something serious. Something expensive." Mara wanted to tell him he was wrong, wanted to maintain some dignity, some privacy, but he'd already seen too much, and what did it matter anyway? "She has a congenital heart defect. She needs surgery to repair it. Insurance denied the claim, said it was pre-existing, that the policy I got after the divorce doesn't cover it. The surgery costs $200,000. I have $8,000 saved, so yes, I need money. But not from you, not like this." Alessandro was quiet while she stitched him up, 13 neat sutures closing the wound. She applied antibiotic ointment, covered it with gauze, taped it securely. Professional, competent, trying not to think about what she'd just done, or what it meant. "There," she said finally, stepping back. "You need to keep it clean and dry. Change the dressing twice a day. Watch for signs of infection, fever, increased pain, red streaking. If you develop any of those symptoms, you need to see a doctor." "Will you be here tomorrow night?" Alessandro asked, sitting up carefully, testing his range of motion. "I work 4 nights a week. Tonight? Tomorrow? Then I'm off 2 days. Good. I'll send someone with proper antibiotics. Pain? Medication if you want it. I don't want anything from you, Mara repeated, but it sounded weak even to her own ears. Alessandro stood, steady despite the blood loss, despite everything. He looked at her with those dark, assessing eyes. Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it yet. He pulled out a wallet, extracted several bills, and set them on the counter. Mara saw they were hundreds, at least 20 of them. For your daughter. I can't. You can. You will, because she needs you to. He moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you, Mara. For your skill, for your discretion. I meant what I said. If you need anything, you call me. He wrote a number on the back of one of her supply requisition forms, his handwriting surprisingly elegant. Anything at all. Then he was gone, his 3 companions materializing from wherever they'd been waiting, and Mara was left alone in the treatment room with $2,000 in cash, and a phone number, and the terrible knowledge that she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. She cleaned up the evidence of the impromptu surgery, disposed of the bullet and bloodied supplies in ways that wouldn't be questioned, charted nothing. Then she pocketed the money, hating herself, hating him, hating the situation that had made her desperate enough to compromise everything she believed in. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She treated a drunk driver with minor injuries, a kid with a broken wrist, an elderly woman with chest pain who needed to be admitted. Normal things, legal things, things she could chart without lying. At 7 a.m., when her shift ended, Mara drove home in the early morning light, feeling like she'd aged years in one night. Mrs. Chen was making breakfast when Mara arrived. Emma was at the table working on a drawing, and everything looked so normal, so innocent, that Mara wanted to cry. Mama! Emma looked up, her face lighting up in the way that made every hard thing Mara did worthwhile. Look what I drew! It's us at the beach. Remember when we went last summer? Mara looked at the crayon drawing, at the 2 stick figures holding hands next to blue waves under a yellow sun, and felt her heart contract. Emma was too thin, too pale, got tired too easily. The surgery needed to happen soon, before the defect worsened, before it became an emergency instead of an planned procedure. It's beautiful, baby, Mara said, kissing the top of Emma's head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Are you feeling okay today? I'm good, Emma said, but Mara heard the breathlessness under her words, saw how her lips had a faint blue tinge. Not good. Getting worse. Mrs. Chen gave Mara a knowing look. She had a good night. Woke up once, but went right back to sleep. You look tired, dear. Hard shift? Something like that, Mara said. She paid Mrs. Chen for the overnight babysitting, sent Emma to get dressed for the day, and stood alone in her small kitchen counting the money Alessandro had left. $2,000. It wasn't even close to enough, but it was more than she'd had yesterday. More than she'd have had if she'd done the right thing and reported him. She hid the money in the back of her closet, in a box marked winter scarves, where Emma would never look. Then she showered, trying to wash away the night, and fell into bed for a few hours of restless sleep. The next night, true to his word, Alessandro sent someone. Not himself, but a young man who arrived during Mara's break and handed her a bag from a pharmacy. Inside were prescription antibiotics, pain medication, and a note in that same elegant handwriting. Thank you again. Use these if you need them. A. Mara threw the note away, but kept the medications. They were good ones, expensive, the kind Emma would need after her surgery. She told herself she was being practical, but she knew she was rationalizing, making excuses for accepting anything from a man who was clearly a criminal. A week passed. Then 2. Mara went back to her routine, working her shifts, caring for Emma, trying not to think about Alessandro or the money hidden in her closet. She added it to her surgery fund, watched the total creep up so slowly, knowing it would take her years to save enough at this rate. Years Emma didn't have. 3 weeks after the shooting, on a Tuesday morning, Mara got the call she'd been dreading. It was Dr. Patel, Emma's cardiologist, his voice gentle but urgent. Mara, we need to talk about Emma. Her latest echo shows the defect is progressing faster than we hoped. I'm recommending we move up the surgery timeline. I'd like to schedule it for 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks? Mara's voice came out strangled. But I don't have the money. Insurance still hasn't approved it, and I've only saved— I know, Dr. Patel said. I'm working on some options. There are programs, charitable funds. Let me see what I can do. But Mara, this can't wait much longer. Her heart is struggling. After the call, Mara sat in her car in the hospital parking lot and cried. Not the kind of gentle tears she sometimes allowed herself, but great gasping sobs that shook her whole body. She'd done everything right, worked hard, played by the rules, tried to provide for her daughter, and it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided to use it. She pulled out the crumpled supply requisition form she'd kept, despite knowing she should throw it away, and dialed the number Alessandro had written there. He answered on the second ring. Mara? Not a question. He'd known she'd call eventually. I need help, she said, and hated how broken she sounded. My daughter, her surgery. It has to happen in 2 weeks and I don't have the money. How much do you need? $200,000. She laughed, a bitter sound. I know that's insane. I shouldn't have called. I'll take care of it. Alessandro said, like it was nothing, like that amount of money meant nothing to him. What hospital? Who's the surgeon? Mara told him, feeling numb, feeling like she was making a deal with the devil, and knowing she'd do it anyway because Emma's life was worth more than Mara's soul. It's done, Alessandro said. The money will be paid directly to the hospital by tomorrow. Your daughter will have her surgery. What do you want in return? Mara asked, because nothing was free, especially not from men like him. Nothing, Alessandro said. I pay my debts. You helped me when you didn't have to, at great risk to yourself. Now I'm helping you. I don't believe you. He was quiet for a moment. Smart, but in this case it's true. I don't want anything from you, Mara, except maybe the chance to check in occasionally, make sure you and your daughter are okay. Why? Mara whispered. Why do you care? Because I had a daughter once, Alessandro said, and his voice was different now, full of old pain. A long time ago, she had dark hair like yours, eyes like yours. She died when she was 7, leukemia. We had all the money in the world, and it didn't matter. She died anyway. Mara felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry. So am I. Every day. He cleared his throat. Emma won't die, Mara. Not if I can help it. Not when I can do something this time. The money appeared the next day, paid in full to St. Catherine's Hospital for Emma Sullivan's cardiac surgery. Mara confirmed it with the billing department 3 times, unable to believe it was real. Dr. Patel called her personally, sounding surprised and pleased, saying the surgery was scheduled for the following Monday. That weekend, Mara tried to explain to Emma that she was going to have the operation that would fix her heart. Emma was brave about it, braver than Mara would have been at 9, asking questions about what would happen and when she could go back to school and whether it would hurt. It will hurt some, Mara said honestly. But then you'll feel so much better. You'll be able to run and play without getting tired. You'll be able to be a regular kid. Will you be there when I wake up? Emma asked, and Mara heard the fear underneath the question. Every second, Mara promised. I'm not going anywhere. Monday arrived too fast and not fast enough. Mara held Emma's hand as they prepped her for surgery, stayed with her until they wheeled her back to the operating room, then collapsed in the surgical waiting room and tried not to fall apart. The surgery would take hours, Dr. Patel had said. 4 to 6 hours of not knowing, of waiting, of praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. She was on her 3rd cup of terrible waiting room coffee when Alessandro walked in. Mara stared at him, unable to process his presence. He wore a different expensive suit, moved with that same controlled grace, looked healthy and whole, with no sign of the injury she'd treated 3 weeks ago. He was carrying flowers, a beautiful arrangement of sunflowers and daisies, Emma's favorites somehow. "What are you doing here?" Mara asked. "Checking on you," Alessandro said, sitting down beside her. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know," Mara said honestly. "I'm terrified. She's so small, and they're cutting into her heart. And what if something goes wrong?" "It won't," Alessandro said, with the same confidence he brought to everything. "Dr. Patel is the best. I checked. I also checked on the entire surgical team, the anesthesiologist, the equipment, everything. Emma's getting the best possible care." Mara looked at him. "You investigated my daughter's surgical team?" "I investigate everything that matters," Alessandro said. "And this matters. You matter. You don't even know me. I know you're a good mother. I know you're strong, competent, brave. I know you risked everything to help a stranger, and that says more about your character than anything else could." He paused. "And I know what it's like to sit in a waiting room like this, hoping and praying and bargaining with the universe for one more day with someone you love." Mara felt tears slip down her cheeks. She was so tired, so scared, so grateful and guilty and confused. "Thank you," she whispered, "for the money, for coming, for everything." "You're welcome," Alessandro said. He reached over and took her hand, and Mara let him, drawing comfort from the solid warmth of his grip. They sat like that for hours, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. Alessandro told her about his daughter, Sophia, about the 2 years they'd fought her cancer, about holding her at the end. Mara told him about Emma's father, about the divorce, about building a life from nothing and trying to be enough. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, Mara jumped up so fast she nearly fell. Alessandro steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "She's okay," Dr. Patel said immediately, and Mara felt her knees buckle with relief. "The surgery went perfectly. We repaired the defect. Everything looks good. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about 30 minutes. Mara thanked him through tears, unable to form coherent words. After Dr. Patel left, she turned to Alessandro and found him smiling, real joy on his face. "See?" he said. "I told you she'd be fine." When they let Mara back to recovery, Emma was asleep, small and pale against the white sheets, surrounded by machines that beeped reassuringly. Mara sat beside the bed and took her daughter's hand, feeling the strong, steady pulse, the warmth of living skin. Alessandro stood in the doorway, not coming in, just watching. When Mara looked back at him, he nodded slightly, a gesture of understanding and goodbye, and turned to leave. "Wait!" Mara called softly. "Don't you want to?" "This is your time with her," Alessandro said. "I just needed to know she made it through, that you're both okay." "Will I see you again?" Mara asked, and was surprised that she wanted to, that this dangerous man who'd crashed into her life had somehow become important. "If you want to," Alessandro said. "I'd like that, but only if you want to, Mara. No pressure, no expectations." "I want to," Mara said, and meant it. Alessandro smiled, handed her a business card with his real contact information, and left. Mara turned back to Emma, watching her daughter breathe easily for the first time in years, and felt something shift inside her. Gratitude, yes, but also something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. Emma's recovery was slow but steady. She came home after 5 days, weak but improving daily. Mara took 2 weeks off work, sleeping on the couch in Emma's room, monitoring her daughter's every breath. The surgical team visited regularly, pronounced everything healing well, adjusted medications. Alessandro sent flowers every few days, always Emma's favorites, always with simple notes. "Thinking of you both. A. Or, glad to hear she's improving. A. Nothing demanding, nothing inappropriate. just gentle reminders that he was there if they needed him. 3 weeks after the surgery, Mara called him. "Emma wants to thank you," she said, "for the flowers, for helping her mom. She doesn't know about the money. I just told her you were a friend, but she wants to meet you." "Are you sure?" Alessandro asked. "I don't want to intrude." "I'm sure," Mara said. "Come for dinner. Nothing fancy, just us. Tomorrow night if you're free." He came bearing gifts. A stuffed bear for Emma that was soft and perfect. A beautiful scarf for Mara that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He charmed Emma immediately, listening to her talk about her favorite books and her friends and what she wanted to be when she grew up with the kind of focused attention that made her light up. Watching them together, Mara felt her heart do something complicated. This man, this dangerous criminal, who'd walked into her ER bleeding and changed her life, was so gentle with her daughter. He signed Emma's cast from where she'd fallen the week before, told her stories about his own childhood that made her laugh, treated her like she was precious. After Emma went to bed, Alessandro helped Mara clean up the dinner dishes. They moved around her small kitchen in comfortable silence, and Mara was acutely aware of him, of his presence, of the way he looked at her like she was something worth looking at. "Thank you for tonight," Alessandro said finally, "for letting me be part of this. It means more than you know." "You paid for her surgery," Mara said. "I think dinner is the least I can do." "The money means nothing," Alessandro said. "Being here, seeing her healthy, seeing you happy, that's everything." He paused, set down the dish he'd been drying. "Mara, I need you to understand something. My life is complicated, dangerous. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. But when I'm here, with you, with Emma, I feel like maybe I could be. Good, I mean." Mara looked at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd saved her daughter and somehow stolen pieces of her heart. "I don't need you to be good," she said. "I just need you to be honest with me." "I can do that," Alessandro said. "Always." He kissed her then, soft and careful, and Mara kissed him back, tasting possibility and danger, and something that might be love if she was brave enough to name it. Over the following months, Alessandro became part of their lives in ways that felt both natural and impossible. He came to Emma's follow-up appointments, celebrated when Dr. Patel declared her recovery complete and perfect. He took them to dinners at restaurants Mara could never have afforded, to plays and museums, and once to the beach, where Emma had wanted to go back ever since that trip last summer. He was careful, discreet, keeping his business separate from their time together. But Mara wasn't naive. She saw the bodyguards who followed at a distance. She saw the phone calls he took that made his face hard. She saw the nights when he couldn't come over because he had business to handle. She knew what he was, what he did. And she chose him anyway, chose the protection he offered, the life he made possible, the love he showed her daughter and increasingly showed her. It wasn't the choice she'd planned to make, wasn't the story she'd thought she'd be living, but it was hers, and she owned it. 6 months after Emma's surgery, Alessandro proposed, not with grand gestures or public displays, but quietly in Mara's living room after Emma had gone to bed, with a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious. "I know I'm not what you imagined," he said. "I know my life is complicated and sometimes dangerous, but I love you, Mara. I love Emma. I want to build a life with you both. If you'll have me." Mara thought about the ER nurse she'd been 6 months ago, desperate and struggling and alone. She thought about the choice she'd made to help a stranger, the line she'd crossed that had led to everything else. She thought about Emma, healthy and strong and laughing, about the future that had seemed impossible and now seemed bright. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The wedding was small, private, just family and close friends. Emma was the flower girl, taking her job so seriously that everyone smiled. Sophia, Alessandro's sister, welcomed Mara and Emma with open arms. The whole day felt like a dream, like something that couldn't possibly be real, but was. That night, in their new home, the house Alessandro had bought for them in a safe neighborhood with good schools, Mara stood at the window, looking out at their yard where Emma would play, and felt Alessandro's arms come around her. "No regrets?" he asked softly. Mara thought about it, about everything she'd done and everything she'd become, about the compromises and the choices and the life she'd built from desperation and love. "No, regrets," she said. "Not one. Because sometimes the right choice didn't look like what you expected. Sometimes it walked into your ER bleeding and dangerous and offered you everything. Sometimes you saved someone and they saved you right back. Sometimes love found you in the most unlikely places, and you had to be brave enough to reach for it." Mara had been that brave, and looking at the life she'd built, the daughter who was healthy, the man who loved her, the future that spread out bright and possible before them, she knew she'd make the same choice again. Every single time.